Hello and welcome to Kit's Animaze. I'm your host Kit, and today we will be doing yet another anime review. So grab a snack, get a drink, and listen to me blab about Wicked City. Alright, disclaimer. This video will not be without spoilers, so if you're looking to avoid those, please do get gone. My sibling in Christ. Return when you have watched the anime, please, and thank you. So to get started, I'll go ahead and describe what the movie is basically about, or the logistics of like what happens, I guess. Yeah. So, um, for Wicked City, we're going back in time to the anime world of the 1980s. Back when character designs were cutting edge, vibrant, and mostly sensually drawn out in really vintage styles. Wicked City made its debut in 1987, which is crazy. My mom was like 5 years old when this film came out. It was made or it was produced by Madhouse and Video Art for Japan Home Video and is based on the Black Guard, which is the first novel of the Wicked City series. I think is it technically a manga? I believe by Hideyuki Kikuchi. I think that's what it is. Yeah. I got the names written down, y'all. I'll be having to look at my notes every once in a while. So, Wicked City, the animation specifically, was a solo directorial debut for Yoshiaki Kawajiri, who served as the director, character designer, storyboard artist, animation director, and key animator. So, yeah, Yoshiaki was wearing like tons of hats. Um, Kawajiri is also known for his work in Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, which I still have not seen and I want to see. I really need to see that because I think it'd be super interesting to watch. I've seen the previews and stuff, so that's something that I want to get into. Anyway, the synopsis for the movie is while protecting a signatory to a peace treaty between their peoples, a male human and a female demon discover that their mutual attraction may be the key to unifying their worlds. I ain't gonna lie, like, I should have read the synopsis before watching the film, because, like, watching it, I had no idea what was really going on in regards to their relationship, because it was barely really expressed until the ending. So there is that, and I'll get into that later on. I do know that, like, Wicked City is considered a dark fantasy action horror, and it is currently available to watch on Tubi. If you don't know what Tubi is this, free streaming program. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like, I wouldn't put it in the same category as like Netflix and Hulu and stuff because of course you have to pay for those. But Tubi is like a gold mine for really interesting pieces of media, which you could probably like. I know I do it, but like if you go on YouTube, you can look up like Tubi reviews and people will be showing you like all the crazy weird stuff that's really on there and the good stuff. They have like super old, not super old, but like classics. You know, like the other day, well, not the other day, it was like a couple months ago. I was watching Push with Chris Evans and Dakota Fanning and like a whole bunch of other people. That's a good one, you know, that I saw when I was younger. So yeah, they have like little gems hidden in there, but at the same time, there's like some wacko stuff going on. So, to dig deeper into the plot before I get into my feelings about it, main character, the main male character is Taki. So Taki is a man that works for an electronics company during the day and a black guard whenever they call him in, which is mainly at night from what I saw. Because the time for the 100-year treaty that was put in place in the past is reaching its end, he and Maki, a demonic blackguard, often referred to as a black woman, we will set aside the implications of that, are charged with keeping an original signer by the name of Giuseppe Maillard safe until it's time to sign the new treaty. By the end of it, it's revealed that Maillard was actually working to bring them together this whole time because he apparently was aware of them possibly being able to procreate. So that was like the main focus of the film, which I kind of understand to an extent, but it's just like the way they wrote it didn't make sense to me. And I'm going to explain a bit more of why. So, to get into what I liked about it, of course, I really liked the style, the anime style specifically. Like it's really old school. So immediately, whether you are watching animes from that time or not, it's immediately nostalgic. I really love the color scheme of the entire anime. They did a lot of like over, I forget what they're called, but basically where the entirety of the screen is like one specific color to kind of portray the emotions of the event or the experiences that the characters are having. And they kind of went through like blue, they used a blue color spectrum and a lot of blacks, a lot of reds. Um, there were other lighter, like more pronounced colors as well. It was just like a lot of tints. It reminds me of those, I forget what they're called. It's almost like psychedelic art, but at the same time, it's very retro, like retro 80s, 90s type, that type of vibrancy. But I like it. I liked it. Um, yeah, I will say though that in a lot of the night scenes, they would be sometimes just like entirely blue, which in my opinion was like a hit or a miss in terms of the angles and the lines. But I will say that like the characters, the way that they drew the characters was super interesting. I did like the original elements of the storyline, like the black guards guarding the world from the dangers of the black world, which is what they call like the demonic realm, which I thought was really interesting. As like surface level, it's interesting because you can kind of do so many different things with that. But when you like dig into it a little bit more, it was lacking in my opinion in the way that they expressed it. Um, I will say that the demons that they had put in there were definitely like really grotesque, and they were weird enough to freak me out a little bit. Like watching them kind of transform, I was like, ooh, that was disturbing. But it was what I would expect from a piece of media about dark supernatural beings. Like they did a really great job designing them. Well, Kawajiri did a really great job designing them, so that was super interesting. Now to get into what I did not like. The main elements of the storyline or plot weren't thoroughly displayed, in my opinion. And the reason why, the main thing that I felt was not completely displayed enough was the relationship between Maki and Taki. It was supposed to be romantic, but again, I didn't really see that displayed in their interactions. Maybe because there was only like a small amount of times they actually talked to each other from what we saw. And it's like, again, we see this like quote unquote this couple is attracted to each other and in love trope, but we see no evidence to really communicate that. It's like, yes, Taki sacrificed his career as a blackguard and threw Giuseppe to the wind to save Maki from being abused when she was captured by the people of the black world. But it's like, so what? You know, like that alone is not enough to say, oh, this person loves this individual. And it just seemed like they didn't take the time to really communicate their relationship, I guess, through they didn't express how they connected in the emotional sense. You understand what I'm saying? Because I mean, love is an emotion, isn't it? So when there's an emotion involved, we have to see that progression, and we didn't really see that. Again, another part of like what I didn't really feel was thoroughly explained was the lore on the treaty situation. Like we didn't get enough of that. We didn't even learn the fullness of how it was exactly set up. Um, Other than the fact that it was signed in 1850 and it was super important to keeping the peace between the human and the demon world. And like perhaps reading the manga would like shed light on it a bit more, but I mean, I don't know. It was just really interesting. And it was interesting of how much was left open. Like they spent a lot of time on Giuseppe's like perverted commentary, but we didn't learn enough about the actual storyline and the political things that were going on within the human and the demon world. We didn't learn about that stuff, which I personally would have thought would have been super interesting. Another thing that I really, really I ain't like it at all, was the female characters and the excessive and unnecessary nudity. Now, I'm the type of person that believes that the physical body is a very beautiful type of, I guess you could say, art. I feel like the human body is art to me to extent. And I believe that there's so many different ways that people can kind of spotlight that aspect of beauty. I love being involved in that. I love learning about that. I love seeing that in art. And it just, that in this, it was not artistic. You understand what I'm saying? It wasn't artsy. It was just annoying. Like, if we made a drinking game out of how many times we ask, why is this woman bare chested? We'd have been plastered halfway through the film. None of us are strangers to the reality of female sexuality being used as a mechanism to gain views and positive ratings. Like the entertainment industry as a whole really relies on this sex sells ideology, so much so that it's present in like they go damn near every single film. And this one really was not different. And it just kind of like, how can I explain? It's more so like there's this rule in storytelling. There's this room in film. In film, it's like show, don't tell, and I believe that's like a super big thing in writing as well. And so there's this focus of like making sure that everything you bring up has a purpose, and it has a purpose that feeds into the storyline. You understand what I'm saying? Like it has to feed into the storyline, and this, like there wasn't enough here. You understand what I'm saying? It was these people were just naked just to be naked and nothing was happening. And it's like that was weird, you know, like we didn't need that. Like we definitely didn't need that in terms of communicating more about the storyline. All that time that y'all spent putting in all this extra stuff that we didn't need to see, we could have been learning about the actual story of what was really going on, what was happening, why this person was doing this, why this person was doing that. You understand what I'm saying? And so those are just my thoughts on like that's what I really didn't like about it. Like I said, what I liked about it was the artistic aspect, and what I didn't like about it was the lack of focus on the artistic aspects. So there's that. Getting into like my personal thoughts even more in depth, y'all. This is the last time I take an anime recommendation from a man because this was just not as much as I had expected from hearing people talk about it. And I think technically this one is like, this might be like considered a banned anime. There's like a couple of them. There's a whole handful of them. Most of them I would not touch with a 10-foot pole. So don't ask me about that. There's a lot of them I would never ever bring up. But yeah, I believe this one is considered banned in some place. It's just like, listen, I like cinematic toxicity as much as the next person, you know, but there's a difference between problematic characters and problematic media. Problematic characters are morally gray, morally ambiguous, or simply without morals. But like problematic media doesn't adequately describe the issues with these specific kinds of characters. Problematic media glorifies, romanticizes, or blatantly ignores the elements within the media that are unacceptable. Examples of this are objectifying characters, degrading or humiliating groups of people based on race, gender, sexuality, religion, etc. The list goes on, and there's problematic media everywhere. It's literally everywhere. We see it all the time. So it's not, it's, it would be incorrect for me to say that I was shocked by it being a part of a lot of the media that I see, but it definitely is tiring. And it doesn't, just because it's just because it has been normalized doesn't mean that it is appropriate. I feel like people aren't really registering that. Like, to an extent, this stuff needs to not be here. Like more so like as a writer, as a director, as a filmmaker, you need to understand that you have a responsibility to not only mirror reality, because of course art imitates life, but you have a responsibility to be honest with your audience about the logistics of what's actually going on in these stories. And what people don't know is, like, when you put stories together, you make art, you make films, you're revealing more about yourself as an individual than you are about anything else. And this film, to me, the logistics of how everything happened, and depending on who made what decision, what they showed me was that they lacked, how can I explain it? They seem to have lacked the understanding of how to communicate positive or a healthy dynamic of emotional and mental growth between two adults, in terms of, and that's just like on the romantic side of the characterization. But then, like, you step outside of that and you look at the fullness of the storyline and all these different things that are brought into it, especially the unnecessary parts. It just goes to show that there was a lot of decisions that were made that was based upon the preferences of these different directors or the people that were making these decisions, and it didn't serve the story in a way that it could have. And I've mentioned this a couple of times in different areas, but it's like, it was just, it was lacking in that aspect. For example, like looking at Mayart's behavior, Giuseppe Mayart, his behavior towards Maki, throughout the anime. Uh, it can possibly be said that his, overtly sexual comments about Maki's beauty and body were written in as a mechanism that Mayart was using to put it into Taki's mind to get close with Maki. But it just came off as him being gross because he was being disrespectful and gross. There's many ways you can hint at two people getting together, and the writing in this anime relied very heavily on the sexual aspects of a romantic relationship, and very, very, very little on them actually building said relationship. So, it was just really, it was really lacking in that aspect. We didn't learn much about Maki's character. Of course, we could have guessed that Maki may have been disliked by her people within the black world because she worked as a black guard, but it's like, we see we only see a little bit of that, when her ex-boyfriend Gene shows up. Like I said, y'all, I got spoilers in here. I gotta tell y'all what happened. So it's like, there's a lot of different things that happened that were, these were just like a lineup of events. I understand that basically, like, bare bones, that's what movies are, a lineup of events. But it's like they kind of have to make sense. There's got to be some lineup that connects the dots. And while the storyline makes sense when you look at the bare bones, you got to add that meat in there. And the meat that was added was a little bit slim in terms of the storyline. Like I said, the manga's probably better. Would I read it? I don't know, y'all. I don't know. Um, I don't know at all. All right, character thoughts. Taki was boring, y'all. He was boring. He didn't have no. To me, it kind of gave like he was written as a man, and that's it. And I know, like, I can talk for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours about female characters that lack nuance, but there's this reality with a lot of male main characters that have been written into animes. And again, this came out in the 80s, so there's a lot of stuff that has somewhat shifted now, but there's still some baseline elements that are still there. And one of them is like the main male character that doesn't have a personality beyond like being a guy, And it's not like it's not really like heavy-handed misogynist or anything like that. It's more so like a guy that is made important because he's a guy. in the story. You know, like he's the main guy and that's it. We don't learn Taki's important because he's like a cool dude and he wants this or these are his goals or this is what he likes. No. We just learn that Taki's a guy and he works as a blackguard and he likes Maki and stuff happens. That's the story. And it's weird. It's weird. Like it's just weird. Like the clips of I guess the bits that they wanted to show us that Taki's a good guy is him going to save Maki. I guess that was what they were using to do that. And it's like, look, y'all, don't shoot. For real, I just can't fully watch a piece of media and not see all of the holes in it when it comes to the storyline of what they're trying to tell us or the thing that they're trying to communicate to us because it's like I one of my favorite pastimes is connecting the dots and finding patterns and putting all these different things together and I see now in this like there was like a lot of holes, there's a lot of things that kind of just didn't fully make sense and I wondered about that. I wondered about that a lot. So yeah, Taki to me was like he wasn't really that good of a main character for me because he didn't have a lot of personality. Maki, she could have been interesting. I mean, like with the basis of her being from a black world, that would have been really interesting to dig into. Like her, what made her decide to work as a blackguard. Um, we just we learn very little about her because the focus is on Taki and his love for her. Like that's it. And so it's we don't really learn about Maki's past. We see her ex-boyfriend, we see her getting snatched up by some other demons, but that's pretty much it. Like what else is there? Can we learn a little bit more? Shoot, I would have settled for some information about Taki. If it was like gonna be a part of the storyline, show us, tell us what's up with that. But that ain't happened neither. So, yeah. Giuseppe, was annoying. He was annoying and he was gross and he was rude. And at the end, he kind of like dressed it up like he was this. Well, the storyline, the way they wrote it, they dressed it up like he was this super all powerful guy that was super wise and was saying all that stuff because he knew what was supposed to happen and all this. And I'm like, so he's like the sage? Is that so? Y'all telling me that we have Taki who goes on the hero's journey and Maki, who is like the one who helps him get from place to place. She's like the prize or whatever, or the way that y'all trying to dress that up. And then Giuseppe's the sage. And Giuseppe's the all knowing guy who brings them close, not close, but like right to the nose of what they're supposed to be learning or what the gist of the entire anime is. And it just, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I was disappointed. I'm like, I was expecting more. And I don't know why I went in expecting more. I'm letting myself get disappointed. But there's that. Would I recommend this? No, not really. I mean, if you want to see something because of the art style, maybe. I mean, for I give it like a 5 out of 10 in terms of the actual, like being entertaining. If you want to see the colors and all that stuff, definitely this is one for you. But in terms of like the actual storyline of it being interesting, it just didn't hold that much weight for me. Um, and that is really just my opinion. And I only mentioned three characters because they were like the they were the only important characters that were brought up. Like I didn't learn about nobody else that was important. I don't even remember the fullness of everybody else's names. I watched this a while ago, you guys. I'm just looking at my notes, but it was like it just was really uneventful and it is what it is. I mean, I'm sure you guys can probably like if you want to watch it, please do. I mean, and let me know how you feel about it in the comment section cuz like I don't know, dude. There's just a lot of stuff that was really missing in my opinion. So, yeah. So, thank you for listening to me talk about Wicked City. I really hope you enjoyed this. Please do like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. And let me know your thoughts. Like, your thoughts if you've seen the anime, if this is something that you would like to watch. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, let's have a conversation. I'm open to hearing everybody's ideas and their feelings and their thoughts. So please do feel free to let me know. And if you have any recommendations or ideas that you what girl recommendations? That's the word. I done said some extra sentences. Yeah, but if you have any recs, just let me know again in the comment section, and I'll see what I can do with those.